Well, live from Moore Gymnasium on the campus of the Bethune-Cookman University in beautiful downtown Daytona Beach, Florida. It's time for the first of 3 women's basketball games here at Moore Gymnasium to close out our schedule in 2023 here on the CatEye Network. Hello and a very warm welcome. My name is Michael Trurillo. Happy to have your company. SID Bryce Hoynoski joins me in the commentary booth today. Bryce, it's an interesting matchup today. It's the Warner Royals as the Wildcats begin 3 non-D1 contests to close out their 2023 after running a gauntlet of both in-state and out-of-state opposition in the first 3 weeks of the season.
Yeah, Mike, and what a start to the season it's been for these Wildcats. You know, being in that seat with you for that first game at UCF, we saw a really strong start to the season, even though the final score didn't reflect it. We clearly saw some flashes in that team. Since then, they've been able to rattle off, of course, the win over Iona, a great weekend at the Georgia State Classic. You finally get a little lull in the schedule here, get to take on some of these NAIA D2 opponents. It's a good time to capitalize, get some stats up, and get ready for the conference play.
Bethune-Cookman in the gray, trimmed in maroon and gold. There's a tie-up immediately after the tip. Now we're getting into some crunchy rules. Did anybody control the tip? No. It's going to be a re-jump because the possession arrow was never set. And we might have it again, but no, Warner wins the tip, but it's an over and back, so the Wildcats get the ball because Courtney Logan passed the ball to Jasmine Edwards past the line.
The ref was ducking for cover in the middle, surrounded by 3 or 4 bodies there. It was kind of a wild start to the game.
Wildcats will take the first possession, and it's a nice pass off the fake shot from Chanel Wilson as the Wildcats are on the board first. And Chanel Wilson has been doing Chanel Wilson things this year. 15.4 points per game leads the team, but she has a supporting cast around her this season that rivals pretty much anything that the Wildcats have had under Coach Chanel Creighton the past 3 seasons. So you see one of those supporting cast here, Kerrigan Dunn, who has been on fire. There's Chanel McDonald, and she lays it in.
Chanel is just one that she's not always the biggest size-wise in the middle, but she just fights so hard. She battles so hard for every ball and makes up for it in a bunch of rebounds and a bunch of points.
Yet to see Warner get off the mark. Their top scorer is Jasmine Edwards. She wears number 32. That pass goes off the back of Omariah Tucker, but Bullen keeps it alive. Here is Edwards, the transfer from Jackson State. Free throw line jumper, no good. And McDonald over the 5'3", Kalia Watson takes the board. Here's Deshante Edwards flashing through the lane, loses the ball out of bounds. And Deshante Edwards, man, had a career night against FIU, even in a loss. 18 points, 6 steals, and was the SWAC Impact Player of the Week. The Lady Wildcats are racking up those awards early on in the season.
Yeah, representative every week of the season so far. They've been outstanding.
In the corner, here's Giannis Hurtado from Tampa. She's the second leading scorer on this Royals team. That layup won't go. Offensive board for Bullen, and unable to connect on the hook shot.
This Wildcats man defense is exactly the kind to swallow up a smaller team like Warner.
4 players under 5'3" for this Warner team. Corner jumper off the backboard. I think that's last off of a Wildcat. No, it last touched Kalia Watson. Kalia Watson and Aliyah Watson, 2 sisters on this Warner team, both from Milwaukee. And both played at the same high school and transferred in from the same junior college. Good to see Omariah Tucker getting the start today for the Wildcats. She wears number 10, gets the ball in the post, and a nice box out to finish the scoring opportunity.
These Wildcats can attack the basket in so many different ways. They have so many players that can pop out to the three-point line and take the shot. A bunch of players who are really great footwork in the paint. They can crush you in a lot of ways.
We are facing the reigning NAIA National Player of the Week, and Jasmine Edwards, as she doesn't connect for the first points for Warner. Played a similar non-counting contest against UNF. Here's a 3 from Wilson that's off the mark. Scored 18 points in that game, and then had 34 2 nights later against the University of Fort Lauderdale. So if we let her have free reign in the painted area, she could take over, but it is 6-0 Bethune-Cookman at the first time out.
Got the men's team in action today, just at the same time. They're taking on South Carolina State up there in Orangeburg, up 9-4 early. I'm sure we'll have plenty of check-ins. We try to keep you updated on that one. Of course, we appreciate you checking out women's action here. A little bit quieter of a gym with the students out on Christmas break and some of the faculty starting to trickle out as well. But we still try to have a healthy, fun environment in here. The fans that are here still manage to get pretty loud.
Yeah. Basketball season is in full swing. Come catch the Lady Wildcats on December the 12th at 11 a.m. as they take on the Johnson Suns. Admission is free for non-conference games at Moore Gymnasium. Can't make it? You can catch all the action live at youtube.com/CatEye Network. It's Warner, Johnson, and Trinity Baptist over the next 6 days.
And Johnson in particular is going to be a fun one. It's an 11 a.m. contest. It's also Education Day. You'll see a lot of...
we'll have a lot of kids in the building.
Yeah, a lot of colleges this time of year will do that. A lot of universities. My previous work at Stetson, we used to do it every year, 11 a.m. for a women's game. It's awesome because the kids cheer for everything. It doesn't matter if it's the opposing team, basket, block, steal, everything that's moving quickly, the kids get fired up. It's really awesome.
I have an interesting story about that, actually. One of the colleges I toured when I was looking at going to school was Ball State University up in Indiana, and I remember a conversation I had with an admissions person as we were touring the basketball arena, and they said they had just had their Kids Day, and it was the loudest that arena had been in her memory. So it can get rowdy in there.
It certainly was like that in the Edmond Center a handful of years ago when I was there. It's really fun. It's can't miss.
Kerrigan Dunn with the ball now, averaging a team-high 5 rebounds per contest. Kayla Clark loses it out of bounds. It's been a slow start to the season for Kayla. She missed the first 4 games with an injury and has kind of been slowly working her way back into that rotation, but when fully healthy will form a pretty dynamic front court duo with Chanel McDonald. Wildcats try to trap in the backcourt. Royals a chance to run through the defense, skip pass to the short corner. Nice extra pass to find Edwards, and through contact scores the Royals' first point. Royals from the Sun Conference at the NAIA level. They've played a couple of big teams at that level so far in this season. Life University, Morris College, and Voorhees College up in South Carolina, Thomas University in Georgia, and Mayville State from North Dakota.
Nice jumper there from Kayla Clark. You mentioned her before. She's a real X factor for this Wildcats team, especially when you start talking about SWAC tournament play.
Steal by who else? Deshante Edwards into the front court, down low to Clark. Round the horn it goes. Oh, Mariah Tucker rims out the three, but Clark gets the board. Edwards all over her, but she's able to stay on her pivot foot, find Wilson underneath, and the Wildcats will go to the line for the first time in today's contest. Wildcats, despite winning 4 straight before that last loss to Florida International, they're losing the rebounding margin by 2.5 overall. And that'll happen when you face teams like Florida and UCF, who have 6'4", 6'6" players at the center position.
It's a credit to their offensive attack and their defensive, just their tenacity on defense as well, to be able to compete so closely with this team, with these all these different teams, with how undersized they are. We really saw them get taken advantage of at UCF and at Florida with that, with some really star, bigger players in the middle. But when there hasn't been that big presence inside, they've really taken advantage of any and all opportunities that they have.
And even as another steal by Deshante Edwards on the full court press, Wilson cross-court pass, driving Kayla White mid-range jumper won't go, over the back called against the Wildcats. But with the exception of that UCF game, which kind of got out of hand in the second half, every single game the Wildcats have played has been close. You see a game at Florida, they lost at 83-69, but they were within 8 points. Another steal for Deshante, 3 in a row, as Wilson finally finishes it off for another score for Bethune-Cookman. They were within 8 in the fourth quarter against the Gators. Then, of course, the wins over Iona, Georgia State, Bradley, and then Florida National lost by 3 but had the lead in the final minute. Another steal for the Cats. Another score, this time from Damani Dorsey.
Wildcats, and Deshante Edwards in particular, doing her best Damani McIntyre impression. Of course, he's still sitting at number 2 in the nation on the men's side for steals per game. But Deshante is one, we really saw it with Morgan Beecham the last handful of years, a real leader on the team, and defensively she was just ridiculous. As a smaller guard, blocking shots, coming up with steals. But Deshante coming in and just really having that eye for the ball, picking off so many passes, she's really been a great defensive presence, in addition to be a really great point guard on the other end.
Well, yeah, Deshante Edwards, of course, last season led the SWAC in steals with 93, but she doesn't have the lead in steals this year. It's Kerrigan Dunn, who's kind of come out of nowhere in her junior year and stolen the spotlight at that 2-guard position, leads the team in rebounds per game, leads the team in steals, and for someone last year who didn't get more than 10 minutes a game and mostly came off the bench, it's surprising her level of development from season to season.
Yeah, and Dunn was a late addition to the team last year. She came in very, very close to the start of the season, and like you said, she's just come on really strong. She took advantage of her minutes last year, and this year has just really seized and been outstanding.
Warner takes a timeout. Wildcats up 14-2 and continue to use this pressure in the backcourt. Warner does eventually get in the front court. Here's a 3-pointer from the wing. Rolls out for Jasmine Edwards. Edwards averaging 18.9 points a game in their non-Division I contest. Nice job by Kayla Clark to find the post up. Nice feed as well from Dunn. Of course, Warner, as any team at that level, has played some big opposition. Played UNF last week. Gave a decent account of themselves, but eventually fell. But in their non-D1 games, they are 5-3 on the season. And this is a program in Warner that has kind of turned it around. Has traditionally not been a great basketball school at the women's level. There's a steal and a score from Kerrigan Dunn. But last year, this Warner team went 15-13. It was their first winning record in 19 years. Another risky pass trying to find the cutting Sierra Moore is picked off by the Wildcats. This is a team in Nikki Jesse's first season at the helm. They went 3-25, but have turned it around to be real contenders in the Sun Conference, which is one of the deepest at the NAIA level here in the state of Florida. Jumper from Clark, no good. Warner trying to run the floor. You see how hard it is for some of those smaller guards to see over the taller players that the Wildcats have. Kayla White with another steal.
Well, Warner's certainly not helping themselves trying to run this really up-tempo, fast, almost full-court offense. If you're going to stay with the Wildcats, if you're going to stop making these risky passes, you really have to slow the game down into that half court.
Jumper from Camara Langston, and one of the things that the Wildcats could benefit from over the next 6 days with these 3 non-D1 games is getting some of those players in rotation who haven't really been. I'm thinking of players like Kayla Clark who are working their way back from injury, players like Camara Langston, even Carriana Woods, who started a couple games but has been out of favor in the last few contests, and really getting everybody up to speed before conference play.
Last thing you want to see is one of your big-time players, Chanel, get hurt.
Langston, that time she finds the mid-range jumper, 20-2. Big start for the Cats. Reminds me of the men's game we had against Trinity College, where the Wildcats, I think, led 26-4 at one point. Edwards trying to finish over the taller Clark, won't get that one to go. Wildcats have gone to a small lineup, with McDonald back in the game. Nice fast hands from Camara Langston. White trying to go downhill. She'll take the step back jumper. Of course, I saw the Wildcats came in at number 2 in the HBCU women's basketball power rankings this week, only behind Jackson State and just ahead of Norfolk State.
Yeah, Jackson State's going to be that one we saw them fall early in the SWAC tournament last year. You want to try to get one of those higher seeds so you can avoid them in the early rounds, maybe hope someone else can knock them off. Of course, not to say these Wildcats don't have the firepower this year to deal with the Jackson State, but if it's anything like last year, this year's Wildcats team, if they were faced with that road they had last year, you could very easily see them making it all the way to the title game.
Well, and then, of course, the SWAC is going to be deep again. Arkansas, Pine Bluff, and preseason player of the year Zay Green are going to be very difficult. Nice bucket in transition for Kayla White, and she's another one, Kayla White, that is looking for some minutes in these next 3 games. Has kind of been shuffled out of the lineup this season. Was a regular starter for the Cats a season ago. Skipping through the lane is Courtney Logan. Can't finish. Offensive board for the Royals. Bianca Francis with the ball now top of the key, and her pass gets stolen away by Kayla White. She goes coast to coast and can't hit the lay-in.
I think that's a lot of the reason that Kayla White has kind of been shuffled out of that starting lineup is because we've seen her miss a fair amount of those layup opportunities.
Especially against Iona and Jacksonville, 2 games that the Wildcats had significant leads in down the stretch, and Iona went to overtime, and Jacksonville, they had to hit some clutch free throws down the stretch to see off the Dolphins. And maybe that's it. That is something, not maybe, that is something the Wildcats will have to work on, is closing out games in the 4th quarter. Turnaround jumper Chanel too strong, as both teams have kind of gone on the scoring slide a little bit here in the last couple of minutes. Edwards at the nail, drives past McDonald, gets bumped, and will go to the line to try and complete the and one. And right there with that hesitation, you can kind of see the level that she can bring, the former Jackson State player.
Yeah, if the Wildcats, or I should say if the Royals are going to really keep close, especially offensively, if you're going to tidy things up, you really need to feed her. She's the most complete offensive player this team has, especially size-wise. There's a lot of telegraph passes. Wildcats up to 10 steals already. We could be looking at a program record here early.
Well, we've already had 2 of those for the men this year.
Could be looking at another one, with, of course, with historian Dan Ryan in the building today. I'm sure he may be poking around on some of our record books, see if he can track something down.
Wildcats averaging 10.5 steals per game. Not sure where that ranks in the SWAC. I'll start tracking that once we get into conference play. Round the horn it goes. Clark back in. Short corner. Uses the body, spins into a jumper and can't hit it, but that's a great post move from Kayla Clark.
She certainly has the potential with that footwork. Right now just kind of easing back into things.
Drive and kick from Warner. Extra pass to get it to Watson. Deanna Sertato, the native of Tampa and from Chamberlain High School, tries to dance in Dunn's face, and she does hit the 18-footer.
It's a rare opportunity there. Dunn kind of giving her a little bit of space to shoot. I haven't seen a ton of that. She took advantage.
If you're up 24-5, you can't get in that mindset of we can just kind of let it slide a little bit. And here, down the lane for the finish is Chariot Johnson, her first collegiate bucket.
And she earned it too. She's great movement without the ball, saw the opportunity in the lane, slashed to the bucket, wide open.
Johnson is one of two true freshmen on this team, the other being Gabriella Stevens. Johnson at the buzzer of the first quarter, can't get one to go, but a special moment for the freshman from Sarasota. She gets her first collegiate bucket right at the end of the first quarter. We'll take 30 seconds and be right back. This is BCU Athletics on the CatEye Network. Cats up 26-7 at the end of one. Second quarter action coming your way from Moore Gymnasium. Michael Girillo, Bryce Roynoski along for the ride as the Wildcats have a 26-7 lead over the NAIA's Warner Royals. That's the first turnover by the Wildcats in the game. Jumper from the short corner finds twine for Kalea Watson.
Another instance there, the Royals taking advantage of a little bit of space. She saw the lane, but the undersized, and I would deal with Kayla Clark in the middle there. Just dumped it off with a quick little jump shot.
Chariot Johnson, the true freshman. Floater just leaves it short, trying to grab her own rebound, but it's tapped out to Hurtado. Giannis runs the floor. Nice defense by Chariot to deny the layup, and then the jumper is missed by Bianca Francis. And Chariot Johnson is somebody that this coaching staff is very high on, as Omariah Tucker scoops and scores. A freshman from Sarasota from Booker High School. Averaged 11.3 points, 2.4 assists, and 4.8 rebounds over her last 2 years for Booker. Nice step in front by Clark, and then she travels. Looked almost surprised to get the ball.
You mentioned Chariot there, and it's interesting to watch both the men's and the women's side for the Wildcats. They play they really prioritize a different style of basketball than maybe the SWAC. It's more of a MEAC style of basketball, really, with the skilled guard play outside in rather than inside out. And you got players like Chanel Wilson and DeShante and then Chariot who excel in that style, but it's just so different. It's so polarizing compared to the big play we see a lot in the SWAC. So it's always interesting and fun to watch that conference play when it rolls around.
Three from the wing, too strong, but the long offensive rebound comes down to Bullen. Shot clock did not reset. We'll have a quick stoppage in play. And Johnson close to a state championship at Booker. Lost in the state semifinals senior year. Lost to the eventual champion Lake Highland Prep. It's a powerhouse program. I got to call their football team a couple of years ago. They came up and beat a public school over here in New Smyrna Beach. Long rebound. Chanel Wilson grabs it. Running the floor. White, nice pass, or a nice grab on that pass. We're a little bit behind her, and then we'll grab Edwards for the kick.
Wildcats are so fast getting down the floor in transition like that. There's not a lot of teams that can keep up with players like Kayla White, Chanel Wilson, getting that ball down the floor, slashing to the basket.
But as you said, it's about finishing those opportunities. It's fine getting the steals, as Chanel Wilson does Chanel Wilson things. Just kind of a step-back jumper there.
Makes it look easy as always.
Yeah, but you got to finish those opportunities. We were talking about missing those open looks off of turnovers. You can have all the steals in the world, but if you're not cashing in on the other end, it doesn't mean anything. Tapped out of bounds by Clark as she tries to battle with China Bullen, the graduate student transfer from Florida Southern College, originally from Exeter, New Hampshire. Nice steal on the inbound. Not sure who they'll credit that steal to, either Tucker or Wilson, but the Royals get it right back. Tucker battling on the boards, and they're going to get Warner for a push in the back. And Mariah Tucker getting the start today. I mentioned that I was glad to see her start because she has missed most of last season with an injury and then has been mostly a spot-up shooter coming off the bench, although typically she'll play the 4 in lineups like this with only one center. Oh, what a spin, and Clark can't get the rebound. Tucker battles but loses out to Watson and then fouls her. That's a little bit of frustration from Mariah.
Yeah, Mariah figured to be a really big part of the Wildcats last season before she went down with the injury. She was a regular starter, played a handful of minutes. She's got that scorer in her. That's what she does best. She can score from the inside. She's big enough to battle with the bigs. She's got that three-point shot that's really been outstanding to start this year. She's kept the Wildcats in a lot of these early non-conference games just with her three-point shot.
She's shooting the best three-point percentage on the team at 47%. Edwards drives, stops, throws a wild one off the glass. It's ripped down by Chanel McDonald, who's back in the game. Catch and shoot transition. Oh, bank is open for Chanel Wilson.
A good 1.5 feet, 2 feet behind that three-point line too. She can get a bucket from anywhere.
I often wondered if Deshante Edwards, as here she is with the ball now, driving through, kicking for a three-pointer from the wing. It's good for Damani Dorsey, but I'll get back to my point in a moment. Deshante Edwards and Damani McIntyre trained together because they both led the SWAC in steals last year. You got to think if there's any kind of collaboration between Zion Harmon and Chanel Wilson because their games are so similar. Ooh, that's a big collision right at the free throw line. I think they're going to catch Clark for the foul. It's not a charge.
You know, you talk about the defense for both the men and the women. It's a shame the SWAC doesn't have an all-defense team because players like Damani and Deshante don't get any love in the postseason, where a guy, Damani, was 26th last year. He finished in the nation in steals.
Might be better than that this year.
We had even Morgan Beecham last year was close to the conference lead in blocks as a guard in addition to being top of the ranks in steals.
As a 5'5" guard, I might add.
And they get no recognition. It always goes to a big man.
Nice jumper from Sierra Moore, the redshirt sophomore from Cape Coral, Florida. Redshirted last year at Nichols State before transferring down to Warner. It's always fascinating to see where all these players come from that play at a Warner or a Johnson or a Trinity Baptist, if they've started there or transferred down from a higher level. A lot of these players have transferred in, be it from a lower level like the Watson sisters or a higher level like Moore and Edwards have. Speaking of Edwards, there's Deshante. Nice feed to Chanel, but she gets a shot blocked by Jasmine Edwards. Funnily enough, Jasmine Edwards, tallest player on the team, highest scorer on the team, does not have the most blocks. That honor goes to Sierra Moore.
It was a really nice contest by Edwards. Stayed straight, avoided
no, they got the foul.
Oh, they did call the foul.
It's shocking. I thought that was a clean block. Although that area of the floor is about as far away from us as it is possible to be in this gym. I believe this is the first time the Wildcats have gone to the line today. No, it's the second.
Last time we were in this gym, we saw a men's contest with, what was it, 65 combined free throws?
Yeah, it was nuts.
Not fun basketball.
But the Wildcats did get the win over Incarnate Word, a team that had beat them pretty soundly last year. For all our hemming and hawing preseason about the men's team, they're off to a decent start. Warner turns it over again. Dorsey, the recipient of the bad pass. Transition pass a little bit too tall for Kerrigan Dunn to corral.
Men's team currently up 22-19 with just over 6 minutes to go in the first half against South Carolina State. Even though their live stats are showing us as NC Central.
NC Central played a big dog, Penn State, I think, yesterday. No, it was Maryland. Bank shot doesn't go for Moore.
Definitely some big-time games in the SWAC today. I think Jackson State has Houston, Pine Bluff, of course, defending champion UConn. I'll have to check that score because it was close early.
It is not close now. I checked right before the broadcast.
Well,
it was like a 16, 17-point game.
That's
Edwards through the lane, gives it to Clark with a little hesitation. Baseline drive. Kayla Clark showing off the moves. You can see her left leg is still pretty heavily taped, but she can move with the best of them when she gets ahead of steam.
Certainly going to feast on this smaller team, get just about anything she wants.
Three-pointer attempt, short for Warner. And this is the lineup as the Wildcats turn it over pretty carelessly there from Chanel McDonald. But this is the lineup on the floor now I want to see. With Chanel McDonald being allowed to play the floor and Clark at the 5, and you go with a kind of a bigger lineup, which could help the Wildcats against teams like Jackson, against teams like Grambling, with all that size on the inside.
Yeah, the Wildcats have so much flexibility. Once swag play comes, if they get into a rut, they can throw that small lineup out there. They can throw the bigger lineup in with all three of their bigger players in there. They can play so many different styles of basketball. They have a lot of really players that can fit in just about any scenario. And then, of course, when you have players like Chanel Wilson who can get that basket when everything else breaks down, it makes everything significantly easier.
Nike is the official outfitter of the Bethune-Cookman Wildcats. Gear up on the newest BCU Nike gear at Nike.com/Bethune-Cookman Wildcats. And make sure you are representing BCU Athletics to the fullest. Buy the latest BCU gear online at the Bethune-Cookman online store. Go to BCUathletics.com and click on shop to find the newest BCU clothing and apparel. That's BCUathletics.com and click on shop. Bryce, it's kind of shocking that we're coming down to the end of the calendar year, just a couple weeks away from 2024. And if you look back on this year, what's a highlight for you from the BCU athletic program in 2023?
It has to be baseball. It was an unbelievable run. Of course, I'm lucky to have been a part of it in the booth with you. It was just a fantastic week overall, but there's so much excitement once we come into the next year. I really think all around, because both these basketball programs, particularly on the women's side, playing so well. Baseball and softball are always a fantastic watch, super competitive. Football, the sky is the limit.
Woo! Three-pointer, no. McDonald can't get the rebound. It rolls off fingers. We'll have to agree that it is the baseball's run to the conference finals, and looking to go one better next year.
Certainly have the arms, the guns for it. It's going to be a new look team for baseball. Softball is going to be fairly consistent, I think, with what we saw last year.
Tie up on the floor. Possession arrow favors Warner.
You know, Coach Laura Watton added a handful of bats to her lineup. Hopefully got some help for starting pitching. Haylene Gonzalez, of course, still going to be a solid anchor on that side of everything. Baseball is going to look quite a bit different. A lot of transfers out. Still should be a really exciting year.
McDonald on the run after the turnover. She'll go to the line. And, of course, you can't mention baseball without the recruiting aspect. And coaching staff has done it again. Another top-ranked JUCO recruiting class playing to the Jack this year.
And Coach Hernandez has improved on that ranking every year since he's been here, just all over the JUCO recruiting classes. Just done an outstanding job. Figures to be some young arms in that rotation, I think, is going to be the biggest question mark, but they've got the velocity, they've got the stuff. They should be a lot of fun.
Of course, you mentioned basketball SWAC play coming up for the Wildcats. We start early here at Moore Gymnasium. 6th of January, the Rattlers come to town.
Back to our double headers. As a person who works in it, you kind of appreciate fewer days of the week where you're locked up doing basketball. Long days, a lot of basketball, but it's a fun environment here in Moore Gym. It really is.
Wildcats will trap above the 3-point line and get another steal. Nice pass in transition. DeShante Edwards to Damani Dorsey, and Dorsey's been all over the place early on in this game. 8 points, tied for the team lead with Chanel Wilson.
Kerrigan Dunn with 5 assists, DeShante Edwards with 4. Wildcats moving the ball really, really well, as they always do.
And here, roaming the paint is Gabriella Stevens, the other true freshman on this team. We wondered if she was going to get in, and DeShante Edwards says, yeah, I kind of gave her a little bit too much of a shove there. Let's talk about Gabriella Stevens for a minute. Wears number 15 from Flint, Michigan, all the way down here in Daytona Beach, playing her college basketball. Also a volleyball player, district volleyball champion at Davison High School. Player that probably will get most of her looks here in the next couple of days with the 3 non-D1 games. That's a travel as Edwards shuffles her feet. Good defense by Chanel McDonald. And Stevens, if I'm not mistaken, is a walk-on.
She is a walk-on. I was trying to recall the name of the walk-on from last season who kind of started out in that Gabriella Stevens role, getting in games like this, and then really turned into kind of a bottom of the rotation piece, but a rotation piece nonetheless.
Yeah, and
Tahisha Dasha.
Yep.
She was one that she had some stretches.
And Gabriella Stevens with the bank shot scores her first collegiate points, and the bench goes crazy.
Always love a good bench celebration for the walk-on.
And a
first
block,
points.
first block of the game for either team. It comes from Damani Dorsey. She's doing everything today.
See, Warner again is really leading into the strengths of the Wildcats, that transition defense, that speed. There's just no reason to try to take a pull-up shot like that, especially when everything's moving so quickly. There could be players coming from behind you, defenders in front of you. Really made it easy for the block there, but credit to the Wildcats for taking advantage.
Wouldn't be surprised if this is the lineup you'll see for most of the game with Stevens in. Wouldn't be surprised if Chariot Johnson gets in, and Stevens will go to the line after getting fouled by Sierra Moore.
There's certainly been a point made with both Stevens and then when Chariot was in the game to get them the ball, to get to the basket. They both run a lot of plays for both of them, taking a lot of shots.
And as a true freshman who's still getting used to the speed of the college game, it doesn't matter how high of a level you played it in high school. It's a different beast getting in the college game. And games like this are a great way to introduce those players to basketball at this level. Another steal by Dorsey. Looks like she wants to take it herself, but she'll pass it back out to Dunn. Dunn guarded by the 2-5-3 players for Warner. And the reach-in will be called on Courtney Logan. Logan, the second leading scorer for Warner at 13.3 points a game, a transfer from Felician University in New Jersey, but originally from Riverview, Florida, over in the Tampa area.
Wildcats up to 16 steals. Think about that. The Wildcats, the men's side, broke their program record with 23 a couple weeks back, and we're already at 16, and it's not halftime.
Well, I know what you're doing during the next time out.
A lot of halftime will be a lot of digging. First thing I'm going to do is go over and check with Dan, see if he's got anything in that noggin of his.
Mm-hmm. Good to see Dan back at the old barn. We saw him at one football game this year just for a few minutes.
A guy who loves this university, loves to be a part of it. Basketball program has always been kind of where he's found a lot of his excitement, his enjoyment. Good to see him back.
And here's a 3 from number 3. Hurtado can't hit. For a program transitioning from the MEAC to the SWAC, the MEAC generally regarded as a better basketball conference, the SWAC a better football conference. Dorsey tried to get it to Stevens. D was double covered underneath. Warner a chance to run. And hitting the running jump shot is Kalea Watson. That was smart from Watson. Didn't take it all the way to the paint with Kamara Langston trailing her, looking for the block. It's been a tough start to life, to finish my point, for the Wildcats basketball teams in the SWAC. Jumper for 3, no good. Offensive board to Langston, her putback, no. Will the Wildcats get a third opportunity? Yes. First rebound for Stevens in her collegiate career. DeShante Edwards can't find it. There will not be a fourth opportunity as the ball's out of bounds. But we're finally, I think, starting to see the programs adjust to the level of the SWAC, whereas the last 3 seasons it's been kind of tough sledding.
Yeah, and it's a big year for both programs as soon as we get into conference play. There's no room for a slow start. It's year 3. This is your team. This is what you've built. The holdovers, for the most part, are gone, have graduated, have transferred, have moved on. These are your teams. It's time to solidify your style of basketball within the SWAC.
Wildcats moving from man back to zone, and the Royals playing that really well. Extra pass to find Moore for an easy layup under the basket. 49-15, under 30 seconds to go till halftime. This has been all Wildcats, as we pretty much expected it would be. Stevens in the high post. Kayla White moves to her left and finds Dunn. Langston baseline jumper, swish. Oh, correction, that's Nia Jordan on the floor for the first time. No, correction, it is Kamara Langston. They both wear that headband. Sometimes it's tough to tell the difference. Just another steal for the Wildcats. This one coming from Kerrigan Dunn with 1 second left. Put back. Will it count? Referees conferring. Yes, it counts. And the Wildcats take a 51-15 lead into halftime. No, that is not a scoring error. It is not 51 all, it's 51-15. Wildcats shooting 57% from the floor and using 20 Warner turnovers to get into the lead. We'll take a couple of minutes for halftime. We're back for the second half. Once again, this is Bethune-Cookman University basketball on the CatEye Network. Stay with us for half number 2. Welcome back to Richard V. Moore Gymnasium for the second half between the Warner Royals and the Bethune-Cookman Wildcats. It is 53-15 as we start the second half. Wildcats all over the Royals in this one. This is an exhibition game for Warner. Will not go on their record. It will go on the Wildcats' record as the Wildcats look set to improve their record to 5-3. Quick scoring totals for you from the first half, plus some other miscellaneous stats. For Warner, Edwards has 5, Watson and Moore have 4, and Hurtado has 2. That's their entire scoring. Stick with me, it's a long list for the Wildcats. Kerrigan Dunn leads BCU with 9 points. Wilson has 8, Dorsey 7, McDonald and Clark have 6. Omariah Tucker has 4, Kayla White has 4, Kamara Langston has 3, and then the 2 true freshmen who have made their debuts today. Stevens has 3, Chariot Johnson has 2. Deshante Edwards is the only player for the Wildcats who has not scored but played, but she has a team-leading 4 steals. The Wildcats took the ball away 17 times and forced 21 Warner turnovers in the first half. The Wildcats also had 19 assists in half number 1. I was down talking to Dan Ryan, our historian, at halftime, and he said the Wildcat women's basketball team has not had a 30-assist game since opening night 2017 in a game they beat Edward Waters 101-60. That game's top scorer, Angel Golden, had 28 points. A different era of BCU hoops, but we thank Dan for his knowledge. He pulled that off the top of his head. He didn't even have to look it up.
That's he's an encyclopedia of Wildcat knowledge for sure. I think, Mike, that assist stat is the telling stat from the first half of play. It's great to see the Wildcats, whether it's working on plays or really just emphasizing that ball movement. There's plenty of players on this team that can take the ball to the hole against this Warner team. Chanel could get her shot from anywhere. Kayla Clark can bully people inside, but they're working on that passing, that next pass, finding the open player, crashing to the basket, moving without the ball. It's been really good fundamental basketball, and I'm sure we'll see a lot more of it in the second half.
And the fact that the Wildcats have 53 points and nobody's in double figures yet speaks to how much they've been trying to share the ball and how much Coach Creighton and her coaching staff has emphasized that going into this game.
It's a fun basketball team to watch. The pieces fit together. They played well together. There's chemistry across the team, across the roster, from all the way down to the bottom of it. It's a blast.
Wildcats are not this Wildcat team is not the only Wildcat team playing today. The men's team are up at South Carolina State. It is halftime there right now, I believe. Bryce, you've got the details.
Yep, they go into the half 37-30. They're up. Jacoby Hetty's their leading scorer. Got 9. Or excuse me, it's Seneca Willoughby has 9. And
DJ also has 9.
Correct. Jacoby's got 4 steals, though, to start the game. None from Damani yet.
Scramble under the basket. Edwards wins it for Warner and then travels before she could pass the ball off to Courtney Logan. Men's team looking for 2 out of 3 wins on this quick little turnaround.
They're on a big 5-game road trip, their longest one of the year. Won't be back here at home until the new year when they take on FAMU. They got some big-time competition coming up.
It'll be Warner ball off the tie-up as they've forced 2 BCU turnovers in the first 2 possessions. I'm sure Coach Creighton not happy with that.
It's the one thing you don't want to see in a game like this that's essentially out of reach is this sloppy basketball. You want to focus on those fundamentals.
Wildcats did only turn the ball over 6 times in the first half. Nice move by Edwards getting to the basket, but a little bit too strong off the board. Nice pass ahead. Mariah Tucker. Deshante Edwards continues to quarterback this offense with her 5th assist. Correction, 6th assist. Again, she's the only Wildcat player to not score yet. And I believe the only Wildcat player to not play at all is Nia Jordan. Everybody else has been in the game. You wonder if Jordan's carrying an injury. I see her on the bench. McDonald in the high post. Crashes the glass, gets her own miss, and puts it back up and in.
That's going to be a big part of what takes Chanel McDonald, from a good player to a great player in the middle, is really battling and focus on finishing, especially through contact. It's going to be a big part of her conference play.
That's a wild finish through contact, but it comes straight back to Watson, and she finishes. Something we didn't bring up in the first half is Chanel McDonald played at Warner last year. So this is a homecoming game of sorts for Chanel against her old coach, Nikki Jesse. Jesse, a former Florida Gator and Rollins Tar. Oh, Mariah Tucker, that's a frustration foul from Tucker. Missed a pretty open look and then just tried to rip it away to get a second bite at the cherry.
Won't come back to bite you in a game like this, but if you get frustrated too bad once the games get tight, once they get close, and we know the games in more gymnasium and conference play, they are always close.
Even in non-conference play, there's been some really good games in here. I'm talking about the Incarnate Word game for the men, the Iona and Jacksonville game for the women. It's been the best non-conference slate for the Wildcats on both ends. That's a nice triple drilled by Deanna Hurtado. But it's been the best non-conference home schedule we've probably had since we started working here a couple years ago.
It's been fun. It's been fun basketball. It's been good basketball. Good to see some wins, of course.
Offensive foul, Chanel McDonald. As Edwards had her feet set, so the Wildcats give up a couple of early fouls. Only had 5 personal fouls in the first half. Mariah Tucker is the only Wildcat with 2 at the moment. That's McDonald's first. Would not be surprised if the Wildcats make a lot of roster changes through this second half. That's a nice move by, I believe that was Sierra Moore. No, it was Kayla Watson. Chariot Johnson gets set to check back in. The true freshman, one of 2 playing today, the other being Gabriella Stevens. Both have seen about 5 minutes of floor time and both have scored. As we start to see the future of Wildcat basketball, Deshante Edwards will get a chance at her first point of the night from the free throw line as she is bumped into by Hurtado. Correction, Bullen commits the foul.
A lot of good off-ball movement from the Wildcats. Nobody's really standing still. Everybody's got somewhere to go. Crashing baseline, running back and forth. Some picks, some rolls. Sign of a really great offensive basketball team.
We talked a little bit about SWAC basketball as a whole and how it's going to be tough. I want to run you through a couple of results from this early season that really kind of speak to how tough the SWAC is going to be on both ends of the floor. I'm going to run you through a couple ones. Women's basketball, Grambling State beat Arizona State. Jackson State beat St. John's. UAPB beat SMU. All in the last couple of weeks. Another steal for the Wildcats. In transition, Chariot Johnson pulls up from the elbow, can't get it to go. And then on the men's side, the Southern Jaguars beat UNLV. Jackson State beat Missouri. And Southern beat number 21 at the time, Mississippi State.
The SWAC has a tendency to do this in non-conference play, and it hasn't necessarily translated to tournament play. You know, there's never really been close games when we get to March Madness down the line. But it's last year, the Pac-12 SWAC Legacy Series, for example, which I guess probably won't exist going forward. The SWAC dominated the Pac-12 in a lot of games. They stole 3 or 4. Cal lost, Arizona took down a handful of those top teams. They find a way to be competitive. I think it's because they play that old school style of basketball.
Apologies about the picture. We will work on that momentarily. It is 58-26 Wildcats over Warner Royals. Wildcats are about to go to the line. Deshante Edwards gets there again. We work out a little bit of a technical issue here at the broadcast table. Please be patient with us. Deshante Edwards at the line, former player of the year at Dallastown Area High School in Pennsylvania. Misses the first one off to the right. Edwards has 1 point, 1 for 2 from the line her first trip. Into her motion. Second one is long. Edwards 0 for 2 from the charity stripe on that trip. Here comes Warner. Watson quickly to the top of the arc. She'll be trapped by Edwards and Wilson. Hand off for Tato, top of the key left-hand side. Guarded by Chariot. Johnson tries to dump it down low to the left post for Edwards. The ball goes past her outstretched fingers and out of bounds off the baseline. Wildcat ball. Another turnover for Warner, their 24th of the contest. The Royals average 70.8 points per game, but also turn the ball over 20 times a game. And of course, that's just their NAIA stats. Their scrimmages against D1 opposition have not been tracked. As hard to the hole goes Kayla Clark, running layup through traffic, no good. Rebound Sierra Moore for the Royals. In their blue trimmed in white and gold, attacking the basket. Tillisender's right. Roaming top of the key, here's Kalia Watson. Thought about a pull-up jumper, won't go, and the picture has returned. Thank you for sticking with us through our quick radio segment of the broadcast. We do what we can up here.
A lot of multitasking goes on up in this booth.
Got to keep my radio skills sharp. I'm sure I will use them again shortly.
We should be good, I think, for now, but you got to be, especially at the mid-major level, I think what a lot of people don't understand is what goes on behind the scenes. You got to be able to do a lot of different things. And sometimes that means the color guy is also doing tech support for the broadcast, and we make it work. We have fun. I don't regret any of it. I don't ever, you learn a lot of different things. You see a lot of different sides of the business. You see what goes on, but bottom line is the broadcast is up and working.
And you've mentioned to me multiple times that you'd rather kind of be the big fish in the small pond at a place like Bethune-Cookman when you have a lot of creative control and you can jump on a basketball broadcast or do baseball color like you do for me in the spring and still have the flexibility to kind of create all the content and everything else that goes along with it.
And I think it's cool. You see, when we see the broadcast side of it, we see a very polished product at the professional level, at the high-end, high-major collegiate level, even a lot of mid-majors because ESPN Plus comes in and does their thing. It's a really great overall polished product. You don't see what goes on behind the scenes. We don't have the resources of a lot of those schools, of a lot of that. We don't have that ESPN contract coming in. It's fun to be able to get in on this side of the business, see what goes on behind closed doors, and to be able to get a product up on obviously we're trying to build every year, try to improve what we can do, try to give our fans, our parents, our alums, everything else, the best possible product that we can. And so to be able to kind of dabble in all sides of it, it's a perk of being able to do this job. It's really enjoyable.
Stay up to date with everything BCU Athletics by checking out the Wildcats on social media. Give BCU Athletics a like on Facebook and follow the Wildcats on Twitter and Instagram at BCU_Athletics. For the latest on BCU women's basketball, follow at BCU WBB. Off the inbounds pass, Edwards drives in and the offensive foul is taken. Chariot Johnson picks up the charge.
First one of those we've seen today. It's a smart Wildcats team defensively. They're so on the ball all the time, but then they know the rules. They know when to stop, take that contact. It's never a fun job, but it's one that'll get you a lot of applause, especially from your coach.
This is a team that gives up 63 points a game, and that's factoring in that they gave up 101 to UCF to start the year. I think this defense is going to be one of the tops in the SWAC come down to the end of the season.
Such a fun defense to watch.
3 from the corner, yes, for the Royals. Alea Watson into the game, sister of Kalea Watson. Both from Milwaukee, both transferred in from Lake Michigan College at the NCJAA level. Both of them were all defensive teams as sophomores. So, Wildcats on the board again. 63-29 as the teams trade threes. Edwards into the paint. Kayla White tracks her but does not alter the shot.
Game has finally kind of slowed down on both ends. Warner in that zone defense.
And after the pretty outrageous pace we saw in the first half from both sides, here's Kayla White, a triple no good. Johnson right there to grab the rebound, dumps it off to Clark. Great assist. won't go, but then Kayla gets her own miss and will go to the line. I think both teams kind of at halftime said, let's slow this down a little bit. The Wildcats scored 53 points in the first half, and a lot of that was because Warner was trying to run with them.
Well, it also didn't help that the Wildcats had that full court press going on, trying to pull off the trap. Really, they had a handful down in the corners on both ends, trying to trap Warner. They got him at the half-court line a couple times, forced a few over and backs. They did not lay off. They finally have kind of stepped back and slowed it down. That includes offensively, played into the half-court game and just kind of bubble wrap everyone, get some experience for those players, and just play to the final whistle.
And I think we'll see a lot more of that high pressing style once we get to conference play. And it's going to be interesting the first game against Florida A&M, especially on the women's side, because FAMU last year is not at the level that we expect from that program. Wildcats, I don't remember what the final score was when we played them up in Tallahassee. We beat them by, what, 40?
Oh, it
Close
was
to that?
Bloodbath.
3 from the wing, no good. Crashing the boards for the rebound is Warner, and they will get the foul. It's going to be called on Deshante Edwards. She has her hands out in protest.
Wildcat defense, they just play so physically on really all ends of the floor. Always going to get a handful of contact in the wrong way a few times, as here comes some more small ball for Warner. I guess it's all kind of small ball.
Well, 5'3", Courtney Logan, 5'3", Jasmine Chima, 5'3", Kayla Watson, 5'3", Aaliyah Watson. And we're going to get a chance for a hoop and harm for the first time today from Warner. Correction, the second time today, as Bianca Francis goes to the rack and scores plus the contact. Francis, a junior from Pompano Beach out of Highlands Christian High School. This is only the second trip to the line for Warner today. Their other trip was another and one for Jasmine Edwards back in the first quarter. And now the Royals will try and play some full court. Well, no, they're going to get the ball. I didn't see what happened there. I looked down at a note. Anyway, the Royals, quick 6-point swing. They've hit 7 of their last 8 shots. They've outscored the Wildcats 18-11 in this third quarter. And Kayla Clark's going to go to the line again as she's tripped up on the way to the basket by Francis. And I think there's 2 parts of that. One, the Wildcats just slowing down a little bit, trying to drain the clock and get out of here safely. The other part is that Warner's picked it up. They've drained a couple of those outside shots they were missing in the first half. They're getting to the lane and not settling for those kind of mid-range jumpers that we saw a lot in the first half.
Finally been given a little bit of space. Wildcats, defense pulling back a little bit, and they've been able to have success against that, as you would probably imagine. Men, meanwhile, coming out of the half, about to hit the under-16 media, up 45-36.
Somebody fouled out already over there?
We have Elijah Holsey's at 4 personal fouls in only 12 minutes.
We saw a lot of that against Incarnate Word on both sides. I think we had 2 players foul out on each side. Elijah's 3 more players had 4 fouls.
I believe Elijah was one of the ones to foul out in that game. He's been in foul trouble a lot early this season. He needs some improvement on the footwork on the inside, especially defensively, to avoid those fouls.
Wildcats go back to the full court press. Warner breaks it. Nice double team to keep Edwards out of the paint. Langston tries to rip the ball away from Chima. Chima, one of those players, only 5'3", across to another one. Courtney Logan, left-hand jumper moving to her left and missed everything.
Not a bad job of creating the space there, just whiffed on the shot.
Kayla White back in the game for the Wildcats, along with Chariot Johnson and Damani Dorsey. Kayla Clark now leads the Wildcats up to 11 points, first player in double figures. Dorsey tries to drive through traffic, through too many arms in blue jerseys, and coughs it up. Nice job on the baseline to save it by Logan. And on a second effort, the Royals are going to go to the line.
Nice job crashing the boards by Warner there. That's kind of what you have to do when you're as undermanned as they are, so many bigger bodies in the middle. everybody's kind of got to do their part, and Arroyo came up with the ball there.
We've seen this the other way with the Wildcats against teams like UCF and UF, and to a lesser extent FIU. Now to be on the other end where you have such a size advantage over the other team, it's rare at this level. The Royals, as that second shot is good from Francis, have 4 more non-conference games, 3 of them against non-Florida opposition. They'll play Cumberland and Sterling at home in the Warner Classic, the 14th and 15th of December. And then they'll play Siena Heights on the 19th, and then Freed-Hardman University from Tennessee on the 30th. And they'll start conference play on the 6th of January, just like the Wildcats will.
Cumberland, of course, lost 222-0 to Georgia Tech in football back in the Stone Age. It's the only notable thing I know about that university.
It is also the home of one of our team members here at Bethune-Cookman.
I'm sure she gets plenty of flack for that, even though, you know, that's kind of like 27
years.
rings for the Yankees. Like, it's ancient history at this point.
You would bring that up.
Had to put that one in there.
With the Yankees. Speaking of baseball, I just got a message on my phone. Oh, nice grab by Johnson. Steps through 2 players. Oh, just can't finish. The Wildcats will keep the ball, though. That would have been a nice highlight for Chariot Johnson. But Dohao Ohtani just signed with the Dodgers.
Expected, unfortunately.
Yep. Listen, he's out of the AL East. I'm okay with that. Running jumper from Kayla White, gets her own miss and scores. Second chance points, 11 for Bethune-Cookman, 7 for Warner. So not a lot of difference in that particular category today. 5 seconds to go, third quarter, 68-36. Warner's come to play in this second half. Step back 3 at the buzzer, good if it goes, but it will not for Courtney Logan. We'll take a break and come back with a fourth quarter of action from Moore Gymnasium. 68-36 Wildcats on top of the Royals here on the CatEye Network. Back at Moore Gymnasium, fourth quarter on tap. Bethune-Cookman blew the doors off in the first half, scored 53 points, but only 15 in quarter number 3 as they are coasting towards their 5th win of the season, would move them to 5-3, and there's a very good likelihood they could enter conference play at 7-3.
And it's crazy. You're just a couple of plays short of taking down FIU last weekend and being on a 7-game win streak potentially here.
And if you're really stretching it, you know, they were within 10 in the fourth quarter against Florida as well.
It's been an outstanding start. You know, programs like this aren't always guaranteed success in the non-conference, especially against, you know, high majors or some great mid-major programs. But it's been a fun non-conference slate.
As a block for McDonald. It's tough as someone the size of Courtney Logan going up against Chanel McDonald, who's 6'3". Corner triple. Offensive rebound, O'Mariah Tucker, lots of contact. They'll eventually call the foul as Edwards reaches in against Chanel McDonald.
Probably a makeup call for missing it on Tucker. She got banged pretty hard inside.
O'Mariah back on the floor, catch and shoot triple from Chanel Wilson in there like silverware from the right-hand wing.
Figure she probably gets, 3-4 minutes in this quarter maybe before retiring to the bench and enjoying her weekend.
Up to 11 points with that triple. She joins Kayla Clark as the two players in double figures for the Wildcats. It's been, the scoring for this team has been so balanced today. You don't often have almost 70 points. You do have 71 points, and there's a three from Warner, no good. But you don't always have 71 points and only have two players in double figures, and those two players are on 11. And they called that last bucket a 2 in the stats and a 3 on the scoreboard.
As a statistician myself, I generally defer to the stat computer, but we'll see.
That's a reach against Edwards. Jasmine Edwards has been kept in check today, averaging 18 points a game, just 7 on 3 of 14 shooting and 1 of 1 from the line. Hottest player for Warner has actually been Kalea Watson. 8 points, 4 of 9 shooting. Checking to see if any Wildcats are close to a double-double. The closest one is O'Mariah Tucker, 6 points, 6 boards. Kayla White, nice little teardrop shot. They've used the paint a lot more than this team has. They've kind of been a 3-and-D team against some of those bigger programs, but really pounded the ball into the painted area today.
You're kind of getting a chance to play that different style, like you said. Haven't really gotten a whole lot of opportunities to do that.
Edwards gobbled up by O'Mariah Tucker. 9 to shoot for the Royals. Edwards gets it back, gets an elbow in the back from Tucker. Drives and O'Mariah, oh, I thought that was a block, but just the follow-through caught the elbow.
This Wildcats defense is just one you dread playing against. I mean, you see how tight, like I was watching Chanel McDonald in the paint right there, just tied so closely to Edwards down there. Doesn't give her any space down low, and it's consistent like that. Out at a three-point line, there are Wildcats all over you. It's just it's so annoying, obnoxious to have to get space against a team like that, and the Royals really haven't had a whole lot of chances to do that.
Royals shooting 36% from the floor this afternoon, 16 of 44. Wildcats were up near 60% towards the end of the first half. They've cooled off to an even 50. 28 of 56. But still will probably increase their team field goal percentage on the season. The Wildcats shooting just 36% from the floor. And scoring just 63 points a game. They've already surpassed that with 7.5 to go. McDonald's still in the game. Long pass. Triple on the way too strong. Gabriella Stevens fights for the rebound and forces Watson to play it out of bounds.
I actually think this is a good opportunity for the Wildcats offensively to match up against this 3-2 zone that Warner's putting up. It's something, you know, we see it every year, I feel like, in the NCAA tournament, that the zone just gives teams fits. It's something you need practice to beat. It's all scheme-based.
We saw it against Jacksonville. Gabriella Stevens can't put home the 5-footer.
So to be able to get a chance to run plays, work out spacing, everything against that zone is something that's going to be beneficial when you get into conference play.
It was not Jacksonville, it was Iona ran the zone and really frustrated the Wildcats. They had to come back late in that game to force overtime and eventually did win it in overtime, but they struggled creating shots against the zone. Nice positive play on the last possession from Warner leads to a bucket by Watson.
Zone is so frustrating because it's fundamental. It looks so easy to beat, but sometimes it just isn't.
And even things that you think should be gimmies, like that layup from Chanel McDonald, everything is contested because you've always got someone in the paint. Hurtado was left wide open. Long rebound came down to the Royals, but unable to convert. Long stretch pass ahead. White lets the defender go by her and scores off the stretch play. Nice pass by Kerrigan Dunn. Wildcats 18 assists in the first half, but are up to just 23 on the game. Another steal, this time for White. In transition, Dunn leaves it short. Stevens gets it back to White, but her heel was on the baseline.
Heard assistant coach Brittany Snowden from up here yelling deny on the last defensive possession, going back into the try to deny those passing lanes on defense, maybe come up with a few more steals, emphasizing those quick hands, trying to force those bad passes.
Well, I talked to Dan Ryan at halftime, and I said, what's the program record for steals in a game? He turned to me and said, we're nowhere near it. So
I guess that answers that question for us.
Wildcats 20 steals on the game, which is a season high. Nice lockdown defense again by Dunn. Long stretch pass. And Kayla White can't corral the pass and steps out of bounds.
Kind of an interesting out-of-bounds call there because she never really had possession of the ball, tried to kind of push it back in. She herself stepped out of bounds and then came back in for it, almost like a football-esque, returning to the field of play, but the right call.
I think they're going to call a block on the outside. No, they're going to say that Wilson didn't touch it. It was just a poor shot from Edwards, as we have a timeout called by Warner's head coach, Nikki Jesse. Jesse, known for rebuilding college programs, has taken over 4 losing teams and turned them around. Head coach at Martin Methodist, Lynn, and St. Leo, and now here at Warner. After being the head coach at St. Leo for a couple years, she took some time away from the game from 2014 to 2018, but now has come back and is in her 5th year at Warner. And I mentioned in the first half, this team was 3-5 in 2019, and then 15-13 last year. First 15 wins, first winning record, I should say, in 19 years, and tied for the most wins in program history. And that conference that they play in the NAIA is no joke. Florida Memorial, St. Thomas, Ave Maria, Kaiser, always good in pretty much everything. College of Coastal Georgia. So none of those games are gimmies.
Yeah, a lot of those programs are competitive across the board. They give games to all of these mid-major, high-major programs in Florida throughout the year. Ave Maria was one earlier this year. I forget the sport, but they took a game from somebody in the state. Might have been Stetson. Would it make sense that I'd be following that game? But just a lot of great NAIA D2 programs. It's a strong athletic state in Florida. Of course, the great recruiting base across the board for just about any sport you can think of.
You mentioned Kaiser, and their football team is in the NAIA National Semifinals today. They host Bethel College out of Kansas.
Of course, can't let today's broadcast going by without giving Mainland High School a little bit of pump.
First state title for the football team in 20 years. 20 years to the day. They are 3S state champions. What a thriller on a walk-off field goal over St. Augustine. And an all Northeast Florida clash in the state championship game. So congrats to the Buccaneers. Congrats to head coach Travis Rowland, a former Bethune-Cookman Wildcat, of course.
Certainly a guy that'd be looking for his next step in coaching, no doubt. Probably this off season.
Oh, what a board from Kayla Clark. Fighting through 3 blue jerseys. Didn't get the putback, but will go to the line. Clark, only her 5th rebound on the day. We're going to get a under 5 media time out. Come be a part of BCU Athletics and support the CatEye Network. If you or your business is interested in partnering with us here on the CatEye Network, you can reach out to Wildcats Athletic Communications Department and BCU Sports Info at Cookman.edu. That's BCU Sports Info at Cookman.edu. And your business could be on air with the Wildcats. Lots of great action coming up for you on the CatEye Network, both video and radio, coming up over the next 6 months or so as we work our way through the winter into the spring season. Of course, basketball, we've talked ad nauseum about how both teams have good prospects this year. Baseball and softball, we want to get out to more softball games and do more with that this year. If you haven't actually come to a BCU softball game, you should. The city renovated Sunnyland Park this off-season, so new seating, new dugouts, no new press box yet. We'll get there.
Of course, the working press box is the one spot where they don't touch naturally. Supposedly that's in the works for a couple years, if not next year. But it's a really homey environment at Sunnyland. There's a lot of really tight-knit members of the program that are always around. It's a great spot to take in some really good softball, especially from the Wildcats' perspective. They bring in a handful. You've seen FAU come over here the last couple of years. FIU has been here as well. It's a fun place to watch a softball game. It's a great time to enjoy that early spring weather before it gets too hot. Absolutely would encourage you to come out and watch another successful softball season.
Of course, Wildcats once again making it to the SWAC tournament. They've been there every year. They've been a member of the SWAC. Still haven't taken one down yet, but I'm sure with Laura Watton at the helm, it's only a matter of time. Another steal for the Wildcats. Nice pass by Deshante Edwards. Clark scores again. Kayla Clark up to 14. I can do math. 13 points, a game high. As the Wildcats now have 3 players in double figures. Wilson with 11, White with 10, and Clark with 11. Another steal for Bethune-Cookman, this time for Kerrigan Dunn. She tries to take it all the way herself, loses it out of bounds, and the Wildcats will maintain possession. Cats up to 23 steals.
Dunn and Edwards in a battle for who comes out on top in this one. 4 steals each, but then we've got Kayla White and Damani Dorsey each have 3. 3 players with 2. The only person without a steal, there's 2 without a steal, Cherry Johnson and Chanel McDonald.
No, Chanel Wilson. Chanel McDonald has a steal.
They're both Chanel's, Mike. Give me a break.
Yeah, I know. Well, I mentioned to you at the start of the season, I can't just say Chanel anymore because there are 2 of them, and they spell their names differently, which is frustrating for you on the written content side. Almost another steal there by Edwards. Deshante Edwards, I should say. Jasmine Edwards gets into the lane and loses the handle. It'll be another BCU ball. Jasmine Edwards has quietly picked up 4 fouls in the game, so she's got to be careful. The transfer from Jackson State played her freshman year there. Of course, was a part of regular season and tournament winning teams as Kayla Clark puts in another 2 points. Kayla Clark, it's good to see Kayla have a big game like this. It doesn't matter against what opposition. She's only played 3 games. She's only scoring 3.3 points a game. Has had limited minutes off the bench. Bank shot for Bianca Francis is good, but this is a player in Kayla Clark who was the starting center for this team last year, basically every game. Except she was injured in a couple games down the stretch.
She really came in 2 years ago to this program and was just outstanding from the jump as a freshman.
Yep, true freshman out of Miami, Florida, basically played most games as a starting center.
Just looked ready to go both offensively and defensively. Wasn't a lot of polish to her game, not sloppy with the ball, takes care of business as that traditional center, has a little bit of range when it comes to the jumpers. She came right in and really, helped bring the program out of that rut they got stuck in to start, when they first joined the SWAC, different style of basketball, new coaching staff. She was a big part of what made this program competitive coming into that transition.
And really, I've enjoyed watching her development over the past couple of years, especially footwork-wise, as she closes out that 3-pointer and forces the miss. Not there for the rebound, but it's short by Hurtado. Dorsey in transition, White extra pass. Kayla Clark, the beneficiary of some beautiful transition basketball. Wildcats up to 81 points. They've turned it on in the 4th quarter here. Up to 11 points, still 2:30 to go. And I don't know if you're going to count that as a block.
Probably going to the book as nothing, but still some great hands.
Wildcats try to stretch the floor again. Hurtado comes away with a steal as Kayla White couldn't corral it. With the 2 freshmen, Gabriella Stevens and Chariot Johnson get set to check back in for the last 2 minutes of this one. Wildcats in transition again. Kerrigan Dunn 1-on-2 gets the finger roll.
DeShante Edwards streaking on the opposite side of the lane, too. Good help offense.
Timeout Warner with 1:56. Coach Jesse just takes one more timeout to settle down the troops in blue and gold. The Wildcats will move to 4-0 all time against Warner. The biggest win being a 100-28 contest in 2015.
Men, meanwhile, up 59-44 on South Carolina State. 9 minutes to go in that one.
Every time we've checked back, they've increased the lead.
Jacoby Hetty quietly up to 19 points. Zion Harmon right behind him with 12. 7 rebounds for Hetty. He's the leader for BCU.
And the live stats still show us as NC Central. That's funny.
Well, you know, I've been there, done that when it comes to all those things. As long as they're working and I can read them and I can do my little blurb here. We've got Seneca Willoughby and Zion Harmon both have 3 assists. Zion's got 4 steals. Damani's got 2 steals. Both DJ and Holsey, 2 of the bigger players on that Wildcats offense, 4 fouls.
Well, I know why Damani doesn't get steals on the road. Because you're not there to point to say, put that one in the book.
He does them. He does do it for me. Every time I'm down there, every time. I know you told the story on the broadcast last time. He's got this thing. He points right at me. He's like, you better give me that steal. That's a guy who is on a mission to get some love for SWAC Defensive Player of the Year. Should have gotten more over his last 2 years, really, but it's just so tough in a big man-dominated conference with these guys blocking shots and maybe more flashy defender. Damani, who can defend all 5 positions and really great hands for the ball. Just hasn't gotten that love yet. Maybe this is the year.
Johnson and Stevens both in for Bethune-Cookman. Stevens playing the 5. Johnson in at point guard. Nice little up and under move by Bianca Francis. Can't get the roll. And now here comes Chariot Johnson. Head of steam. Nice little Euro step. Oh! If that's the future of BCU basketball, I want to be a part of it. Beautiful move by Chariot Johnson.
Taking some notes from Chanel, no doubt. Awesome move.
Well, if there's a player that you want to sit behind and learn for your freshman year, and I couldn't think of a much better one than Chanel. As they're going to get DeShante Edwards for a push off the ball. Nobody really in foul trouble for the Wildcats. Tucker and Edwards now have 3, nobody else more than 2. It's been a relatively clean game so far. I think they did give Chanel McDonald a block for that play earlier. She does have one, which I didn't notice before.
A little hometown stat bump, nothing wrong with that.
85-44, 1 minute to go. Kayla White. Langston with a long 2, no good. Rebound, pinballs out to the right-hand corner. It'll be a jump ball. Possession arrow favors Warner. Wildcats don't get much time off. They'll be back here on the 12th against the Johnson Suns, and then on the 15th against the Trinity Baptist Eagles. Have we had a year where both the men and women have played the same non-D1 opponent in the non-conference? Not since I've been here. Ooh, that's a nice and one circus-style shot from Kalia Watson.
Yeah, I know since I've been here, they've never played Trinity Baptist on the same year. I don't think they've ever played Johnson on the same year. So, yeah, I think you're right. I think they've kind of rotated back and forth who gets who. Of course, the women bringing in some higher end on that mid-major spectrum of programs this year.
I've noticed that a lot of these non-conference schedules are more home and homes. So we had the home and home with Iona on the women's side, the home and home with Incarnate Word on the men's side, and I'm sure we'll get more of those as these years progress. Johnson looking for a first collegiate 3, leaves it well short.
South Carolina State is one for sure that will, going forward, be a kind of a series between the two. Probably a home and home every other year.
Mm-hmm. And it's good for BCU and FAMU to kind of keep those MEAC ties, play those schools every once in a while. We're getting a MEAC school in football next year, I believe.
It's a very tight-knit conference in a lot of ways. A lot of turnover between coaching staffs, between support staffs.
There will not be another shot taken, as that is the end. This one belongs to the maroon and gold, 85-47. The Wildcats walk over the Warner Royals in the first of their 3 games this week. A game that went pretty much how we thought it would in the first half. Bethune-Cookman all over Warner. They only scored 15 points in the first half, but 32 in the second for Warner as they came to play in half number 2. Here are your scoring totals. First for Warner, Watson had 11. Hurtado and Edwards had 9. Moore had 6. Francis had 5. Watson had 3. Logan and Lewis each had 2. Bullen and Chima played and did not score. For the Wildcats, buckle in, this is going to be a long list. Kayla Clark leads all scorers with 17 points and 6 rebounds. Tied for the rebounding lead with both Damani Dorsey with 6 and Omariah Tucker with 6. Kerrigan Dunn and Chanel Wilson had 11. Kayla White had 10. Chanel McDonald had 8. Damani Dorsey had 7. Chariot Johnson in her first collegiate start had 7. Omariah Tucker had 6. Kamara Langston 4. Gabriella Stevens in her first collegiate appearance had 3. And Deshaunte Edwards just 1. 0 of 1 from the floor, 1 for 4 from the line. But Deshaunte Edwards did lead the team in assists with 8. The team lead in steals with 6 goes to Kerrigan Dunn. The Wildcats rack up 27 assists, just shy of that 30 assist mark, and 24 steals. 2 blocks on the day for Bethune-Cookman. A couple of more team stats. They out-rebounded Water 38-32, 13-11 on the offensive glass. 27 assists for Bethune-Cookman, 14 for Warner. Warner turned the ball over 33 times, Bethune-Cookman 15 times. Wildcats scored 32 of their 85 points off of turnovers. Warner just had 9 points off turnovers. Points in the paint, Wildcats 46, Warner 26. Steals 24-8 in favor of the Wildcats. And the Royals did not register a block.
Just a complete game from the Wildcats. Offensively, you got a chance to try some new things, get some new players in, but the bottom line is they played that fundamental basketball. Team first, finding the open person, prioritizing the extra pass. Defensively, not a whole lot of challenge. If you like games like this, you got 2 more on deck coming up. The Wildcats have a chance to work out any and all kinks, whether it's play calling or whatever else, chemistry between players. You want to kind of bubble wrap everybody, make sure nobody gets hurt, give some players a good opportunity to get that experience in, and really gear up for SWAC play because it's a big year for conference play. A lot on the line for players, coaches, staff, everybody. It's a fun one tonight. You enjoy it. You don't take a whole lot from it. You emphasize those little things, take what you can away, and you move on for 2 more.
Yeah, good to see Chariot Johnson and Gabriella Stevens getting in for their first collegiate action as well. That'll do it for us here for more Gymnasium. Once again, your final score, Bethune-Cookman 85, Warner 47. For CatEye Network Director Eugene Robinson, and he is also a producer today, Bryce Hoynowski and Brian Harvey are SIDs. Bryce joined me in the commentary booth today. Daryl, not Daryl, he does not analyst. I needed to change my. Sorry, Daryl, if you're listening, you are not here. We'll be back in a couple days as the Wildcats take on Johnson on the 12th. That's an 11 a.m. tip. It is Kids Day, School Day. The arena will be rocking. We'll look forward to seeing you then. My name is Michael Travillo. Thank you so much for watching, and have a very pleasant rest of your afternoon.